and we'll put it out. We're good. Come on over, join me. Yeah, all of you. Thank you all for being here this morning. I'm Rodney Ellis, and I'm with some great leaders who have helped us on flood equity issues. After I speak, you hear from Shirley Ronquillo, former member of the Flood Resiliency Task Force, and then Doris Brown with the Northeast Action Collective, and then Guadalupe Fernandez of Bayou City Waterkeepers. Everyone in Harris County, regardless of color, class, zip code, or ability, deserves protection from flooding. That principle is simple, but it isn't always a reality in our county. To give you a little background on the history, after Harvey devastated our region, voters approved a $2.5 billion bond issue. In 2019, we worked with experts, advocates, and community members to design the flood equity framework, which was later clarified in 2022. The framework was about fairness. It said projects should be chosen based on need, protecting families most at risk, not based on politics or convenience. But this past spring, we discovered that the flood control district wasn't fully following the framework. That's unacceptable. We believe that promises that have been made must be kept. How can we expect voters to pass another bond issue if we don't follow through? Because of the advocacy work of the three people here with me and many others who showed up at Commissioner's Court on June 26, we made some changes. Commissioner's Court reaffirmed our commitment to equity. We directed flood control to do several things. Prioritize high-need, high-priority projects. Fund $262.5 million in identified needs, including $118 million for Greens Bayou, which was one of the major flashpoints during that election for the Harvey bond package. And then return to the court on today, September the 18th, with a clear project schedule, an assessment of need, high priority needs, and a public dashboard to keep residents informed. These are big steps forward, but only if they are carried out with transparency and urgency. We're having this press conference today to announce that we hope, virtually all of the things that we've asked for are included in the motions that flood control will present. But we never know until it's done. We have a responsibility to improve flood protection and defend the people in Harris County. That responsibility includes listening to the voices of those most affected. I'm very grateful to be joined today by just a few of those people who have led in this effort. Shirley served on the Flood Resiliency Task Force and has seen firsthand how the framework can make a difference when it's respected. And after her, we'll go in the order that I laid out to you. I want to say how proud I am that they worked with us to come up with the language that we put in that bond package when the Harvey bond issue came to the agenda. And I just want to read through that language again before you come up, Shirley, because it's some pretty strong language that I think should be included in any future bond package for flood resiliency. And this is the language that we added. Since flooding issues do not respect jurisdictional or political boundaries, the Commissioner's Court shall provide a process for the equitable expenditure of funds, recognizing that project selection may have been affected in the past and may continue to be affected by eligibility requirements for matching federal, state, and other local funds. That was some very strong language. I'm very proud of my staff now and the staff back then. Some of them are still with me who worked on that language, but it's strong language, and we just want the county to follow through on what it said it will do. And folks like these three have been the folks out there toiling in the vineyards, making noise, and creating good trouble to make sure we do it. So with that, I want to turn it over to Shirley Ronquillo, and then Doris Brown, and then Guadalupe Fernandez. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ellis. Good morning. My name is Shirley Ronquillo. I'm a community organizer and former member of the CFRTF Task Force. I'm going to read an open letter from former and current CFRTF members to Harris County Flood Control. Dated September 16, 2025, to whom it may concern. We write to you as past and present members of the Harris County Community Flood Resilience Task Force, or CFRTF. On August 11, 2020, Harris County Commissioner's Court established CFRTF by reconstituting the Harris County Flood Control Task Force. Since then, we've collectively offered 19 years of service. That's 19 years of service on the CFRTF, which was intended as a consultative body, not just to the Harris County Flood Control District, but to the Infrastructure Resilience Team, or IRT, and the Harris County Commissioners Court themselves. The CFRTF is a unique board that reflects the demographics and lived experiences of Harris County residents, with a broad swath of subject matter expertise, views, discipline, and Harris County geographies represented. In our experience, CFRTF members were able to put our heads together to study the flooding in our region, disagree, and compromise to inform how Harris County could address flooding in innovative ways. But there was a disturbing turn. In recent years, as the Harris County Flood Control District failed to implement the prioritization framework we shaped in 2019 and 2022, the CFRTF has been poorly facilitated and neutralized. Today, CFRTF has veered away from implementing the mandate approved by the Commissioners Court. We don't know why this happened, but we know it cannot continue. The CFRTF was one of the first and most meaningful efforts that Harris County made towards headlines for its climate vulnerability, as our homes, neighborhoods, emotional health, and financial stability are compromised by flooding. We cannot sideline community members committed to making necessary and fair progress. At the time of writing this letter, key parts of the CFRTF public-facing website were down, restricting access to meeting minutes, yearly reports, and recommendations on bond project Z-08, Phase 3, tunnel scope of work. We find there's inconsistency with court-approved bylaws. It is our opinion that Harris County Flood Control is not abiding by the bylaws of the CFRTF and undermining its ability to serve its full purpose and mandate as authorized by Commissioners Court. This is evident in poorly facilitated meetings, a lack of transparency, and timely access to data requests and updates on delayed timelines for reports, draft reports, and the slow progress of the flood resilience plan itself. A July 2021 letter submitted to the court by the IRT states that the final deliverable, which was intended to be completed by May 2024, is now slated for completion in late 2026, early 2027. Bylaws of the CFRTF clearly state the task force is intended to provide ongoing oversight and encourage transparency in the development and implementation of Harris County's future flood resiliency planning efforts and projects to help ensure desired outcomes are measured and achieved over time. Provide evaluation and feedback on the following flood resilience topics: overall approach and planning, development of specific projects and activities, effective implementation of previously approved projects, and future funding strategies. Further, and support, and I repeat, support community engagement by the IRT and county departments around flood resilience efforts. The importance of community input to protect local control and restore trust was set aside. The withholding of CDBG MIT funds and the threats from this legislature to take over Harris County Flood Control District proved that Harris County residents should and must shape the future of flood control. It's time for the Harris County Flood Control District and members of Commissioners Court to treat the CFRTF with seriousness it deserves. As the 2050 Flood Resilience Plan progresses and updates to the 2018 bond will be reported on in court, especially as deviations from the prioritization framework are considered and complex partnerships are undertaken, the CFRTF must be updated and give the opportunity to submit written analysis and recommendations to the court on substantive flood control matters as directed by court offices. Signed and respectfully submitted, Billy J. Guevara, founding CFRTF member 2021 to present. Shirley Ronquillo, former CFRTF member, vice chair and chair 2022 to 24. Kenneth Williams, founding former CFRTF chair 2021 to 2024. Michelle Awas, former CFRTF vice chair and chair 2022 to late 2024. Elaine Morales Diaz, former CFRTF member and vice chair 2021 to 2023. Iris Gonzalez, founding former CFRTF vice chair 2020 to 2022. Dr. Erthia Nance, founding CFRTF member 2020 to 2022. And Dr. Danae King, founding CFRTF member 2021 to 2023. Thank you.
I'll try to give you a little quick repeat. We did live stream it. My colleagues are a little worried, obviously, if we don't open Commissioners Court on time. Sometimes we go a little late, but I'll give you a quick rehash of what we did. So I'm Rodney Ellis, and you just heard from Shirley Ronquillo, former member of the Flood Resiliency Task Force. You'll next hear, after I speak, run through my comments, a quick summary again. Doris Brown, Northeast Action Coalition, and then Guadalupe Fernandez. What we're trying to do is make sure that Harris County Commissioner Court follows through on the commitment it made with language that was included as the authorization document, item where we authorized the Harvey bond issue in 2018. And this is the language that was included to ensure that these dollars went to historic neighborhoods that historically didn't get their fair share. The language said, since flooding issues do not respect jurisdictional or political boundaries, the Commissioners Court shall provide a process for the equitable expenditure of funds, recognizing that project selection may have been affected in the past and may continue to be affected by eligibility requirements for matching federal, state, and other local government funds. That was important language. These three people and some of their predecessors were helpful, along with many others, in advocating that Harris County Commissioners Court, if they were going to have a successful bond election, include that as part of the authorizing document. We are well aware that that could create some grounds for a challenge if the county just simply ignored a prioritization framework. Now, this calls for the county putting in place a prioritization framework, which the Commissioners Court did. And then we found out that it had not been followed. And these advocates were helpful in raising good trouble to get us to do that. So here's a quick summary of my comments that I made before a couple of cameras came in. Everyone, regardless of color, class, zip code, or ability, deserves protection from flooding. That principle is simple, but it hasn't always been reality in Harris County. These are big steps forward that we've made so far, but we got a lot more work to do. On June 26th, because of community advocacy, raising Cain, criticizing us because we had not followed the framework, Commissioners Court reaffirmed our commitment to equity. We directed flood control to do several things. One, prioritize high-need, high-priority projects. Fund $262.5 million in identified needs, including $118 million for Greens Bayou, which is one of the major flashpoints that came up consistently on the campaign trail when that Harvey bond issue was on the ballot. Number three, return to the court on September 18th today with a clear project schedule, an assessment of new priority needs, and a public dashboard to keep residents informed. After Hurricane Harvey devastated our region, voters approved that bond issue. We made commitments. We're simply stressing today that we need to follow through on the commitments that we made. And I want to thank my staff, flood control, all of the court offices for working together. I hope, based on late discussions last night, we'll have a good outcome today. I won't know until those votes are cast. But the purpose of this press conference, which I went through earlier, and it's being live streamed, and we'll pass out the gist of my comments, but I just wanted to repeat that for you. And with that, we'll turn it over to Doris Brown and then Guadalupe Fernandez.
Thank you, Commissioner Ellis. Good morning. It is incredible that flood control won't even share with commissioners the status of all projects. It is time for some institutional accountability and transparency, and that requires daylight, so that all of us know that projects are being prioritized in the way all agreed to. Flood control has come time and again and disrespected the prioritization matrix. The community members who gave up their time to work on an equitable framework and the commissioners who trusted them. You keep talking about equity, but we feel we are being told a story and you're pouring water on our heads and calling it rain.
Thank you, Ms. Doris and Shirley and Commissioner Ellis for your leadership on this issue. Good morning. My name is Guadalupe Fernandez. I am a resident of Clinton Park and here on behalf of Bayou City Waterkeeper. We believe that every Harris County resident deserves to be protected from flooding, and that starts with an accountable and transparent flood bond program. We are encouraged and relieved to see the Commissioners Court and Flood Control taking decisive and long overdue steps to collaborate on the complex challenges of the flood bond program. We view this collaboration, coupled with the 2022 prioritization framework, as the keys to ensuring a strategic and just investment so that these limited funds go to the communities that need it the most. The agreed upon scoring criteria ensures that the limited funds are allocated based on objective data guarantee that dollars are spent on the most impactful and highest priority projects. This approach provides transparency and holds the county accountable to voters, building a more resilient Harris County. Leveraging existing critical partnership dollars is also a part of the strategy, helping the county stretch its bond funds further and build collaborative relationships. However, we recognize that securing partnerships has been historically difficult for our disinvested communities. And Bayou City Waterkeeper continues to advocate at the state and federal levels for funding reforms to help bring down more funds to our communities. An accountable and transparent flood bond program will get us closer to a safe and resilient Harris County. We have provided the court with our detailed written recommendations, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Questions? You got my amendments? Any questions? They're about four.
Since you had had some productive conversations last night, do you have an idea of sort of what we can expect to hear from there today and what can come out of it?
So I got 6 items that were, as of a week ago, still unsettled. And I think as of late last night, they were settled. One is a motion that we hope will be rolled in to the bond package that will call for flood bond funds for each bond ID and all associated projects as presented in the updated bond package as directed by Commissioners Court in quartile 1. So we're hopeful there'll be an amendment that'll make it clear all of quartile 1, there are 4 quartiles. They're not divided evenly. We just use the term quartile. So we're hopeful that all of quartile 1 from the 2022 prioritization framework projects will be secured with partnerships. They'll be funded. Assuming that goes in, we'll be very happy. Number 2, prioritization framework allocation of any additional 2018 bonds according to the 2022 framework. That means if there's some projects that just cannot be done, that are in wherever they were in the quartiles, you will follow the prioritization framework with any money that comes back to us. Follow the framework. Number 3, prioritization scoring. We want to make sure it's clear. Surely if you're going to do a project, you ought to know what the prioritization framework, what the score is. If you don't know, have a good reason for it, and then just say that. It was just totally unrealistic to come up with it. But we want that noted. We want it laid out. If it's feasible to come up with a project number, if you came up with something you're doing that was not even on the table back when the Harvey bond issue passed, that means it was outside the scope of what we were talking about. Give it a prioritization score so we'll at least know where you're violating the prioritization framework when you do it. Number 4, dashboard. Make it transparent. Everybody says we're transparent. Put it on a dashboard. Even if some people don't like reading charts or dashboards, put it there so we can say that it's there. That's important because most people know we'll have to go back and either go to the voters and ask for additional money, or you hope the money comes in from federal, state, somewhere else. Most realistic course is at some point we'll have to go back to the voters. We also know that $2.5 billion, it was highly optimistic to think you could complete all of the projects that were on the table with $2.5 billion. So at least do a dashboard, prioritization framework, complete as much as you can with what you have. And then number 5, court updates. Motion to direct flood control provide quarterly updates to Commissioners Court on the progress of all bond projects, including spending and the life cycle stage. The reason for that is I assumed the prioritization framework was being followed. I thought that was pretty clear in the motion that I put forward some time back. It's in the timetable, but I don't want to read all those notes to you. But if you're going to make changes, come back and tell us. I should not have asked the auditor to go and do an audit to make it official. We weren't followed the framework. Number 6, working group. Motion directing flood control to convene 2018 flood bond working group composed of staff from the court offices at least quarterly in advance of court updates. The working group will review project progress and be consulted on the following items. You know, we can't violate open meetings, but staff members can't talk. They don't know what their commissioners will do, but at least that gives you some sense of where we are. And these are items that they would look at. The working group will be consulted on the following project progress, schedules and spending, new partnership opportunities that may arise, unneeded excess funds that may be freed up for reallocation. And for projects completing a life cycle where the estimated budget exceeds 15%, go to that working group. Don't just start moving money around above the 15%. If it's over 15%, go to that working group, and then it comes to us. So at least we can try to sort it out.
You talked about asking the public for more money. You guys had already asked for $2.5 billion on this. The idea of having to go back and say, oops, that's not enough, we need more. Do you blame somebody, something for that? And then what would you say? to
No.
taxpayers?
I think it was the Kinder Institute that put out a study, and there was press coverage back when the Harvey bond issue was put on the ballot in 2018. I don't want to guess the number, go check it to be sure. But it was in the billions, much more than we did. Harvey was an unprecedented package for us to put out, and that was a good thing that we put it out. But, you know, to really solve the flooding problems in this region, it would take a heck of a lot more money than we put forward. I will say this, and I'm going to bring this up in discussion today. We shouldn't do another flood bond package on the fly. The anniversary of Harvey was coming up, and the big debate then was, should it go on the ballot on the anniversary of Harvey, or should it go on the ballot in November, when most people are showing up to vote? I was on the side, and I think virtually everyone on Commissioner's Court favored going on the ballot when more people were going to show up. Historically, that's when you have a better chance of passing it, just based on the numbers, or more people get to participate. We didn't do that. The judge at the time didn't want that on the ballot, while I assume he was on the ballot. And so we did it in August. As it turned out, it passed by 85%. Now, you go back and check. It was the smallest percentage of people voting in the history of a bond issue passing, because we had to pay $1 million to have a special election, but it worked. And you had to get permission from the state to do it. I'm not sure we could do that again. I wouldn't advise us to do that again. But look, we shouldn't do this on the fly. We ought to have community meetings, and if you want to pass it, you ought to be able to say you did what you said you were going to do. And if you couldn't do all 4 quartiles, you ought to be transparent and say we didn't have enough money. But you can't go say you have a prioritization framework in the bond authorizing document, and then you just ignore it. But we ought to start early. I'm for starting now. I'll roll up my sleeves and get out and do it, have community meetings, get input. That list was thrown together on the fly, by the way. And as I have said to my colleagues many times, we've done redistricting since then. I can assure you nobody was asking me, when I was in a fairly lonely position on Commissioner's Court, Rodney Ellis, what are your priorities for this flood bond package? Halls and Greens were getting so much press because those 2 watersheds didn't flood sometimes. They flooded every time. But those 2 probably impact precincts 1 and 2 more. But you know, the lines have changed, by the way. But this equity provision was important. It was powerful to get in there. And I'm sounding this alarm because I would advise my colleagues, you better put it in there again. Because if you don't, you're going to have a hell of a hard time trying to pass another bond package. All right. Now, I said I'd get out here by 9:30. It's 9:20. Since my colleagues want to stop these press conferences, some do, at least one does, before Commissioner's Court. We haven't delayed a lot. Okay, any questions? I'm around if you have any more for me or for my hell raisers. Thank you. All right, Doris Brown.